we're here with Jack Hanks. My name is Stephanie Pouse. I'm one of the co-founders for Brahma Roofing and Construction, and we're working with local homeowners right in our backyard. We're based in Colorado to be able to help them find some relief after the Marshall Fire. So today we're going to be focusing on some frequently asked questions that we're getting and just some really helpful information that we think will be able to assist you guys in navigating what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and let Jack introduce himself and how he plays into this equation.
Hi guys, Jack Hanks. I'm a licensed public adjuster in 38 states, including Colorado. I am the CEO and founder of Velocity Public Adjusting. I've been doing insurance restoration and specifically fire claims since 1989. So we have a great handle on this, and we want to answer all your questions and get you guys the proper help y'all need. So I appreciate being invited on this podcast. We're ready to answer some questions. So let's go.
All right. So if you did not have the opportunity to listen to the town hall, the city hall meeting, where City of Louisville was diving into specifics of or answering questions for homeowners that were impacted by the fire regarding their insurance process, it was a little over 3 hours. And if you need the link, let me know. I can send it over to you. But during that conversation, there were homeowners that were talking about what their experience has been so far filing insurance claims. And so what Jack and I are going to dive into today is one question that stood out to me. On our end, we work with wind and hail a lot. I mean, we work with all types of restoration, but wind and hail throughout Colorado Front Range is a big one. And so wind and hail claims are very different from what we see on the fire claims. And one of the homeowners that was talking during that meeting mentioned that an Indiana insurance adjuster came out to her property. And when they did their inspection and evaluation, they said, you don't have any damage other than a few missing shingles. So you should be filing this claim as wind and hail and not fire. My concern with that is, what does that do for the homeowner in the long term if they open a wind and hail claim and then later on start experiencing issues relating to the fire that happened right across the street from them?
Well, number one, that Indiana adjuster should be thrown back to Indiana. So there probably were missing shingles or missing tile from that roof. There's no doubt. However, my big concern about that is he's going to write him a check for $650 to do a repair job and get out of town. So the problem with that is if number one, the fire was across the street, I guarantee he didn't do a soot test in that home. To see what soot is inside those walls or on their furniture, in their draperies, on their clothing, on their pillows, on their linens. And without that soot, so filing a wind and hail claim is going to get them out of all those other benefits to get those things taken care of properly. They can simply say, hey, the homeowner only filed a wind and hail. We didn't have to do any of this other testing. We don't worry about the smoke or the stuff inside the home. So that's a pretty underhanded sly way to get things underpaid, very much so. And I would very, very, very adamantly not do that. I would file a fire claim because that's what happened there. It's not, the wind was a result of the fire. That's what it's from, right?
Well, so one thing that got brought up in that conversation as well, where homeowners were saying, and you speak to this so well, I understand it, but a lot of homeowners were saying, they're like, well, I can't see any soot or ash, or I had my son climb up my rafters and they didn't see anything in the insulation, or I don't see anything on my windowsills. And that's a big one because, especially in construction, one of the things that we always say is we're like, this is what it looks like. This is our scope for what we can see. But there's an entire another scope for what we can't see, which, things behind walls or things in insulation or issues that we come across every single day. And so that would be another thing that I want you to elaborate a little bit more on is, even if you can't see it, why it's important not to ignore it.
Well, so here's the thing. My team, my firm, and my experience, I rely on science to make those decisions. I'm not Superman. We don't have X-ray vision. We don't have super smells. We bring environmentalists in and we let them do what's called soot testing. They'll go in, they'll drill little holes in the walls, they'll poke the insulation, open up the outlets on those walls, because smoke is it's a vapor. It's going to find its way where it wants to go. It's certainly not going to lay in the middle of a room and sit there. It's going to go in nooks and crannies and find this stuff. And what always happens in my 35 years experience is if it's not done properly, with the remediation and the cleaning of the home thoroughly, and the demolition that needs to take place in June, July, and August, when it gets to be 95 degrees up there with 80% humidity, that home is going to start baking, and you're going to walk in one day and you can start smelling this stuff, right?
Yep.
And guess what? You filed a wind and hail claim. There's no smoke in your home, evidently. So you just once again, you get one shot to do this claim properly, and you just basically screwed yourself. And an insurance company kind of put you in that position as well, and you shouldn't let them do that. So having professionals do this stuff, and hiring, every time I have a fire, first thing I do, I send my environmentalist in to do a soot test, because once again, I've been doing this for 35 years, and I'm not an expert at pinpointing smoke, right? Nobody is, and that's why you use science as a tool, right? So science is science. If it's there, we can get it remediated, get it paid for. If it's not there, no problem. A quick wipe down, and we're good to go. But once again, the adjusters they're not experts in soot testing. I'm not an expert, so you hire those experts to do the thing properly. Just like if you need a mechanic, you go to a shop. You don't hire an accountant to work on your car, right? So it's the same thing. So
let's talk a little bit too about because what you said that really sticks out that I think is really helpful for these homeowners is recognizing too that you don't get multiple times to be able to do this. You get one time. So one thing that comes up that we try to do a lot of educating with for our homeowners is date of loss. So being able to help homeowners understand date of loss and what that means. And we have these conversations every single day. And that has been a big thing that I've been talking about with my team is we need to be able to help people understand date of loss and why that is so important after something like this happens. So can you dive a little bit into, first things first is at this point, claims should be filed. They should be filing a claim to be able to get on the schedule as a first come, first serve to be able to get their property checked out. But let's talk a little bit about that date of loss and what that looks like and why that's so important for something like this.
Well, so the date of loss. So the insurance is all about the specific. It's an act that happened to your home at a specific time on a specific date. Mm-hmm. That's so important because once again, it's about pinpointing the damage that occurred from that event. That's the key to this thing. It doesn't. The maintenance of the home has nothing to do with it, and the thing 3 weeks from now has nothing to do with it. So getting the proper date of loss and pinpointing the time and everything that happened, and then using the data to get to the environmentalist to have it's basically it's a roadmap, right? The data loss is what pinpoints the starting point. Mm-hmm. Everything going forward that caused damages from that fire or the flood or the hail or the wind. That's what's important. That's what caused the loss is mm-hmm. the date of loss with the specific event. So it's a huge thing, and many claims get misfiled by the wrong date of loss, and it's a nightmare for us, nightmare for you, and quite frankly, then you have so there's a thing called a clue report, right? Mm-hmm. It's basically a credit report for your home that when you go to sell or buy or get new insurance, they run what's called a clue report. And every time you have an open or even a closed claim on your home, it's there. So if you start having multiple claims, even if it's invalid, it's still on your clue report. So it's extremely important, number one, to file the appropriate data loss with the proper event attached to it, because you don't want to have 3 or 4 random claims on your clue report. You want one's fine, but you start looking like a habitual claim filer, it's going to do nothing but jack your rates up and then put you with a secondary carrier, which is not going to treat you the same, even worse than the first party carrier. So that's very important to data loss. We talk to our guys all the time, man. Our roofing companies we work with. We'll do the research for them. There's services out there to find the proper data loss. So, and it all starts from there, man. That's where the clock starts ticking as well. Because actually, you have a year or 2 years on your policy to file it correctly and do any changes or things like that. Once that statute hits, you can't sue your carrier. You can't go to appraisal. I can't help you. Nothing can help you once it goes past that statute. So
that's the big one. That's a big one. So that's another one that I really, really want to hone in on. So if you're watching this, another main takeaway is date of loss. If you're looking at the date that your loss occurred, so the date, there wasn't a hailstorm, the date of the Marshall fire. There was a fire. There's a very significant fire. There was no hail. So why would you file a hail claim when it was very clearly damage from the fire? So the date of loss and what happened with the Marshall Fire, that is directly correlated. So if there's someone trying to talk you into filing something another way, you need to hone in on what was the actual cause of the loss. And that's where Jack and I can help you, is being able to say, okay, hey, here's what you need based on what actually happened. The other thing that's really important that we try to educate our clients on is what that date of loss, how that clock starts ticking as time passes. Because we've had times come up where people will file a claim because they think they're ready to start the process. And this is obviously a little bit different than experiencing a loss like we have in Louisville. But they file a claim and then they wait to take action because they think they have time. But they don't realize that that time is ticking. And once you fall outside of that time, then you essentially lose all of the benefits that you had from that coverage. So for example, in something like this, where we have devastation, right? Devastation. They're devastated. We obviously have a little bit of this mourning period to be able to, for people who lost everything, they're mourning. They get to the point of being saying, okay, you know what, we're ready to go. We're ready to get this process started. Why is the timeline and working with someone like you so important when we're talking about date of loss and how long they have to address it?
Well, because once the statute runs out, I think it's 2 years in Colorado on residential, I could bring the best law firm in the world in. If it's past the statute date, you literally have no rights. They can close the claim, no more payments, no more anything, you're done. So the biggest thing I'm concerned about up there is, number one, the cost of materials is skyrocketing daily, even before the event happened, right? Because of COVID and supply chain issues. Like I have roofing companies like you guys that can't find ISO boards. I have other fire restoration, they can't find windows. So, and honestly, the insurance carrier doesn't care about that, right? You basically have ALE on your policy for 1 or 2 years. After that, you're done. So the biggest thing I want to, the key is get us in early, or a company like us in early, to handle these things. There's a thing called tolling that nobody really talks about. Well, we can sometimes go in and extend that additional living expenses to get people extended coverage, because if your claim is not settled, technically the clock shouldn't start yet, even though the date of loss is a certain time. A lot of times we have success going in and extending that date of loss. Extending the ALE coverage on that because of the event involved. If it was 1 or 2 homes that burned down, different circumstance. You're talking about communities that are leveled, number one, and number two, supply chain issues, lack of contractors. I mean, you guys can't take 300 homes and rebuild them, right? Everyone has capacity. And there's, quite frankly, not a lot of great contractors available who weren't already busy anyway. Everybody has capacity. You get 20 or 30 of these claims, you can't do anymore because nobody has the capacity to service this stuff. So
then you're dealing with people coming out of state. You're dealing with people who, don't have any experience in the space. So then you're also, and you're dealing with when you wait, you're dealing with the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth round of people who are actually qualified. When you want to be dealing with the first.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So the key is get your team in place quickly, because we get busy, you get busy, and then we can't take I would go, we don't have the capacity to handle 1,000 claims, right? We can probably do 50 quality claims, and then your product starts to dissipate, right? And then you get the chucks in the trucks, or the rookie adjusters, or whoever, and quite frankly, that's what the insurance companies having struggles with too. Like the gentleman we talked about from Indiana, who informed your client to fire a wind and hail claim, or a wind and hail claim. I guarantee you why. He's probably never did a fire claim, so he had no idea what to do. So these inexperienced adjusters, the carriers are bringing in, because keep in mind, we've had Ida, we've had tornadoes in Kentucky, we got ice damming in the East Coast, and then your area got fires, thousands of structures on the ground. So there's not enough adjusters on the carrier side. So quite frankly, they're hiring anyone they can to come in and get the claim process started with no experience whatsoever. And they're basically got a manual, 3 days experience, and an Xactimate course, like, here's a claim, go figure it out. Well, that's hurting the client, right? So that's the problem. There's just not enough quality people, number one, on both sides to do all the work. And then two, supply chain things. And there are definite timeframes involved on these policies that these consumers have to be aware of. And once again, once you hit that statute, you don't get it handled up front, and it hits that deadline, I literally could I could spend $5 million on an attorney, and it's not going to overturn that because it's a law and it's a statute. And
it's written very clearly. It's very clearly stating it. Well, and so that's a big takeaway here. So a big takeaway with this part of the conversation is you need to be able to make sure that you have the knowledge, or you bring on someone to your team that has the knowledge to be able to confidently say how the claim should be filed. And right now, from both of our experiences, hail is not it. So if you have someone coming in telling you to file something outside of that, you need to be having a conversation, because where Jack and I come into play is being able to, at least, from a structural standpoint, Jack, from being able to analyze your actual policy, being able to come in and say, hey, this is what we're looking at, and this is the direction that you should be going, because time is of the essence. And that's not to make you afraid. It's really to be a resource for you, because what we want to happen is we want you to be able to get the best coverage possible. And unless you have people on your team that have experienced this before, have experience being able to get positive outcomes, you need to be able to make sure that that resource is present. So making sure that it's filed correctly, and making sure that you're keeping an eye on what that timeline is looking like, because it's not open. It's very much so closed. So we need to make sure that we're addressing it in the timeline that we need to be.
Anyway, hey, thanks for having me on today. It's very important. I can't stress enough the importance of getting these fire claims handled properly up front. I've seen many, many families and businesses never recover, and it's sad. You guys have a great opportunity to do it right, get the right people involved. We're ready to roll. My phone number is 480-766-6565. It's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have an office up in Westminster ready to handle these claims and help you guys. If you want to send me the policy for a free review, my team will be glad to read that thing and give you the nooks and crannies of that thing. No cost whatsoever. It's all about doing the right thing for the community and getting you guys happy and healthy and getting you guys moved back home.
Yeah, I second everything that Jack said. I think that that's really important, just to recognize that, especially over here at Brahma Roofing and Construction, you guys are right in our backyard. We're up in the Windsor, Fort Collins area. And so for us, it's really focusing on being able to make sure that we do right by our community. And we just want to make sure that we're able to be a really positive educational resource for you. And this is why we've put together this, conversation with Jack, to be able to just make sure that we're getting you really real information that you can take away. You have some tangible stuff to walk away with, some really clear next steps. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to give us a call. Brahma Roofing Construction, we'll make sure that we'll be able to get your questions answered for you. Like I said, we're happy to be a resource. So sending you all well wishes. And if you need anything, both Jack and our team are here.